Okay, so hello everyone. Today is
Thursday.
Thursday. You may say Saturday. Today is Thursday, September the 21st. Is this the equinox?
I think it's tomorrow.
I think it's tomorrow, right? The 22nd, right?
I don't have
But
my almanac with me,
I
so I
don't have
can't be
mine either,
certain.
but I know well is
It's either today or tomorrow.
it's either today or tomorrow. So that's very interesting. Um but so fall is upon us. So, either, we are leaving summer and going into fall. And tonight we will be continuing in our book club reading of Flight. So Harriott, would you like to take it away?
I will do. Before we get into our book, let us all take in a deep, full, cleansing breath. And as we let go all of the cares and worries of our day, letting them float down the stream, float on that cloud drifting by, floating away from us, never to cause us problems again. Imagine ourselves in a bubble surrounded by white light of love and protection. And as we get into our story of flight, area flight, that is, we will be able to take away a lesson that she might be trying to give us as we read. And let us be grateful that we can gather and we have the ability to hear the story. And with that, I say, and so it is.
And so it is.
Okay, quick review. Lost my, oh, there it goes. Just a quick review. The main characters in the story. The book, of course, is Flight, quantum fiction novel written by Vanna Bonta. And the protagonist in this book is Mendel J. Orion. He's a writer, and his nemesis, aggravator, and anything else that you want to call somebody that tries to get on your last nerve, is Sandra. And she's going to pop up from time to time in the most annoying ways. Mendel is a writer, and he's working on a science fiction book, and the protagonist in his book is Aria Flight. And Aria has a soulmate and a very close friend by the name of Jorian. And in reading the book, I have come to some conclusions, and I won't mention them now, but I just want to see if others eventually come to the same conclusions that I have come to in reading this book. Now, Aria is not of this planet, but she has come into Mendel's life, and she has brought with her her pet, and her pet is a dragon by the name of Onyx. And Mendel first met Aria through Onyx. I think it was through Onyx. I'm trying to recall now exactly the sequence of events. But Onyx came into Mendel's life as a little white dog. And he kind of rescued Onyx because they were in a hotel at the science fiction conference, no convention rather. And the hotel manager or the person that was on duty at the time wanted to chase poor little Onyx, this poor little white dog, out on the street where he could probably have been run over and killed. But Mendel saw fit to rescue him, claiming it was his dog. And ironically, or coincidentally, however you want to look at it, he named this little dog Onyx. Now, as I said, they had been attending a conference in LA, a science fiction convention rather, but they're back home now. And today we begin with chapter 20. The woman he had named Aria Flight had been living in the room over his garage ever since they met. Her presence was a comforting reality he confirmed often through a glance or with the exchange of a word with her. Anything that reaffirmed and celebrated her presence. She was in his life. From his place on the couch, Mendel could see through the dining room to where she kneeled by the sliding door. She was brushing out the white dog's coat. He sat his notebook down and watched. The stray's white coat set off the silvery blonde of her hair. They seemed matched somehow. It was so uncanny that he sometimes wondered if the dog had been hers and if anyone missed either of them. Yet, other than puzzling occasionally over a few such mysteries, Mendel's perpetual preoccupation with the details of existence ceased. Since morning, Aria, some missing element of life, seemed finally supplied. For the most part, he had given up trying to explain it rationally. Her presence in his life was some truth at work. They became they became sufficient reason for him. Something was at work. He didn't know exactly what, but he recognized it as the very something behind the weaving of coincidences of everyday life. Whatever the facts about her would turn out to be, Mendel was convinced the details didn't matter anymore. She was no longer the woman of his dreams, of his novel. She was the woman right there. Buying her a toothbrush and clothes were bliss. Aria could have remembered she was a bowling alley attendant from Topeka, Kansas, yet it would not have demoted her from the pedestal on which he proclaimed her goddess. The only relevant fact which mattered to Mendel Orion was that she was there every day, and days passed. Days of pastel, impressionistic bliss. Love is not blind. Love sees what is most true. Mendel picked up his notebook again. Transforming his thoughts into a flow of black ink, he wrote, "Love is not blind. Love sees what is most true." Even in this world, there exists what is most true. The joy of Mozart, Vivaldi, violins, resonating geometric harmony, elevated sentiment at the threshold of heaven. To the most mundane thing, lambs leaping, strawberries, tropical fish, the miracle of flowers, roses, jasmine blooms, ice cream, September days, the gold boat, rainbows, water, reggae, silence, languid ruling out in a stretch of time with nothing to do. The glory of appreciation, round and budding, soaring upward. If only others knew the orchestration, heard the miraculous symphony in play, every moment in perfection, each day would be an occasion. When life is right, the human spirit soars and glides like a skater, breaking the barrier of physicalness into music, poetry, ballet of thought and matter. Green lawns, cropped rows underneath bare feet, tomatoes spilling sunshine into the mouth with enzyme active vine flavor, sweet basil combining taste and smell into harmony, the inhaling and exhaling of air, eyes, portals. Someone across a distance understands, an idea's successful travel and landing, and another's eyes illuminate and receive. There is no hospitality like understanding. The existence of the human shines in its one most basic need, to care. Most of us find it so good to know when we were of help to another. Love is the power of to give light. Yet, its source is never seen because the source becomes something new. This is my very core, the center of myself. As he signed his name, Mendel J. Orion, Mendel looked up. He wanted to tell Harriott he loved her. She was setting the dog's dish of broccoli outside the glass door. Mendel studied Onyx eating the greens. It was curious. The dog did not eat meat. The oddest thing I can see about her is that vegetarian dog. Mendel mused, considering how daily living with the young woman was proving to be not so unusual. Aria was exceptionally kind and very quick to learn, but she eats, sleeps, drinks fluids, has female cycle. As he visually scanned her body up and down, he wanted her in a way he had never wanted a woman before. It wasn't her looks that did it. It wasn't particularly her body he wanted, not in and of itself. Other than extremely large eyes and full lips, she bordered on looking plain. Yes, he was magnetized by her, although she was ethereal and graceful. He found her more sensual than women who worked hard at looking erotic. Any comments or questions so far?
No?
He's falling in love with this character.
He has. And
And
I'm beginning.
he's making her real.
Yeah, exactly. I'm beginning to wonder if she isn't a figment of his imagination, or if, he's in some la la land out there and he's dreaming and she's for real as far as he's concerned.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
He's going to show us manifestation.
Okay, we'll continue on.
Well, I kind of think that, and I thought about this, last week when I had my book, and after we were after the session, that Sandra is the man that we don't like.
Yeah.
What's his name? Votar.
Uh, no, just sorry. Oh, I forgot to mention
Desert,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, just sorry.
Yeah. That's who I think
Jurassic.
Jurassic, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who I
Um,
think Sandra's gonna end up being.
yeah, I kind of see her as that cantankerous old geezer. Um, okay, we'll get back to the story. Though ebullient, she was shy and reserved about things that ran deep. Sentiments and ideas flared and bloomed in her as if each were new and unrehearsed. The essence of her set him on fire, but the flames, though white hot, didn't burn. Harriott smiled at him from across the dining room as she went to put the steamer in the sink, and Mendel felt washed in warmth. That smile, he had never seen anything like it. It twinkled. It was all knowing, all forgiving, all understanding. Unlike many women he knew, she was genuinely capable of platonic love. She didn't use her body on him. They shared hours and hours of exchanging ideas when they stayed up nights talking. They had gone to museums, read, listened to music. The sublimation was euphoric. There was that time, Mendel thought, she felt something physical for me. Her face became so delicious, vulnerable. Then she quickly looked away, confused. It's as if she contains her potential with reverence. That's it. He determined, looking at her, realizing she didn't just randomly emanate emotions, sex, thought, attitude, and whatever happened to be there. A reverence for sex, for the power, and for me, Mendel contemplated. And isn't it a power? What a very life can begin. Where a very life can begin. He thought of her physically now, but wasn't in a state of uncomfortable desire. Most of what he felt was rapture. He isolated and identified his sex currents for her. They were pulsating through him literally, an electricity pulsing through his body. But there was more. The energy did not generate from the body organism as some impersonal, generalized thrust. The energy was connected to, and in fact triggered by, intense admiration and respect. It was not compartmentalized, but total. Unified body and soul. His profound ecstasy for her occasionally wrecked his body to want to respond in suit. But that was only a fraction of the rapture. I've abused things, he found himself revealing to her when she came in and sat in the chair next to the sofa. Under her quizzical look, he unfolded. When we first met at the hotel and the nightclub, I made that speech to those women in there about their using their cleavages and thighs as communication devices. Maybe it was the best way they knew how to get love, Harriott mused. I guess, Mendel said, her compassion giving him an insight. He thought about how he had addressed the girls and realized it was one of his many attempts to perform surgery on others' shortcomings with an incisive stroke of a phrase. Most people looked back blankly or responded with hatred or confusion or laughter. Harriott smiled at him. I guess I can't expect to force someone to see it all in a minute, Mendel said, realizing that's what he had been doing. Harriott nodded. I used to be that sort of thing. Mendel looked carefully for Harriott's reaction. When he felt no condemnation, he continued. Maybe part of the reason I wasn't so kind to those girls was because they reminded me of something I had done that I didn't want to face, he admitted. He began to burn with embarrassment. It was an addiction sensation, like to anything, I guess. I had to feel something. I wanted that buzz, the bang. Arya's gaze didn't waver. I spent hours doing nothing but thinking of ways to get someone in bed. I've been intimate with people I couldn't stand, he confessed. It was because you weren't here. It was because I wondered where you were. It was because I thought you didn't exist. The thoughts welled in him and surprised him. He felt like crying. When he contemplated Arya, wanting her, having her, it was like stepping into an illuminated arena. His every spot showed. He was having trouble looking at her as he thought about things he had done. Not only sexual transgression, but all things of which he was not proud. To others, they may have seemed insignificant. Lies, stealing when he was a kid, neglecting responsibility, going to bed with someone he didn't love. But they ballooned in his mind and occupied his thinking. Past compromises slithered inside him, rebuking him, threatening to congeal into a pact with imperfection. I know the streets as well as royalty. I've seen and done. Well, the antithesis of everything I stand up for. In this space of understanding, Mendel was free to admit and not be wrong. Guilt and shame detached from him. He released himself from his own condemnation. He said, I guess I was getting used to this body here. I let something other than me do my thinking. I understand. Harriott smiled at him. Mendel smiled back and wondered what it was about her that inspired him to tell her what he had just said. Things about himself he had reviled and hidden, all the while loudly spouting the ideas to which he desperately clung. In her presence, all that fell short of the ideal rose like scum to the surface. He seemed to look past it all to his soul, letting it rise into view, didn't condemn him. Facing it, he felt absolved. All the dreams remained. His valiance was left standing, unsullied. A contradictory duality resolved when Mendel realized he was neither good nor bad. He was capable of being both, as was any human being. Yet, his past transgressions against his ideals had not negated the inextinguishable light that was his innermost, truest self. As he felt himself regain his way back to his integrity, his relief was enormous. He knew his worst did not obliterate all the best of him. His very self was, in fact, the beacon, the lodestar of the ideal. That was home, where all tears and suffering stopped. Mendel smiled gratefully. I suppose it would be a lot easier if a training manual were issued at puberty, he said, grinning. First chapter, what your body is feeling isn't necessarily you. His words stirred something in Harriott. She felt it surge, but she could not grasp it. She looked away. I wish I remembered puberty, she told Mendel quietly. Her words sent a twang of panic through him. She had been content to let time pass with no outside interference, hoping for a natural return of her memory. He sensed a shift. He couldn't keep their world inviolate much longer. A wistfulness pervaded that afternoon, and now Mendel saw it in Harriott's eyes as she gazed back at him. There had been a problem with a medical visit. Even a simple trip to the grocery store stimulated questions and an increasing urgency for an identity. Who was she? Not only who, but what seemed to be a mandatory matter in the world. A person had to be a doctor, a singer, a photographer, a salesman, a secretary, anything as long as it was something. Only pat identities qualified. Many people became confused if an individual had more than one what, as if doing two things were incomprehensible. Well, which do you really like to do the most? Which do you really want to be? That one-dimensional tab was needed to label and file, label and file, label and file, lawyer, housewife, driver. When Mendel considered Leonardo da Vinci, poet, inventor, statesman, sculptor, engineer, painter, architect, botanist, geologist, biologist, he was curious and saddened to speculate what 21st century man's treatment of him would be. What do you do? The girl felt like his only oasis in a strange desert. It was ironic that she was the one who expressed wonder at what she'd do without him. They had resolved what to do about her dilemma by deciding that her memory would eventually return on its own. He had managed to sequester her in his home for a couple of months, away from outside influence. The world, however, did not go away. He only had postponed the search for an answer with a temporary vacation. The moment had finally arrived. She quietly asserted, I want to know who I am. You know who you are. You're you. Mendel started to comfort her, but his argument sounded weak to him. I want to go see a therapist, Harriott announced. She got up from her chair and sat on the edge of the sofa. Mendel sat up. But I thought we agreed that it's been almost 3 months now. Where did you get that therapist idea? How will that help you? Sandra said she knows someone who does something called regression through hypnosis. Sandra Wilford's advice isn't all that trustworthy, Mendel tried to explain. An ominous foreboding washed through him like a shark, able to smell a drop of blood up to a mile away. Sandra just wouldn't let up with her phone calls. Did she call again? He asked. This morning, when you went to get strawberries, she asked if everything was well. Still a blank. How did she know about the blank? Mendel asked. Rex, it was before I promised not to talk about it. I told him the night on the roof. Mendel nodded, just like her. He started seething about Sandra. She knows my Sunday morning ritual of fresh strawberries and calls when she knows I'm at the market. He patted the couch beside him, and Harriott moved closer to him. She was looking at Mendel expectantly, her countenance alert, earnest, quizzical. Her face was one of the sweetest, most innocent he had ever seen, and yet it contained all the wisdom of a mature woman. He liked that she didn't have to resist, contradict, or disagree out of some erroneous datum that it meant independence. Her clothes made her look like something out of a television family of the 1950s. Tailored, happy, neat, hair curled, the epitome of an earth girl, Mendel thought. It was charming, a little poignant. I guess your dress and the Mendel motioned to the necklace of pearls. This is what we bought the other day, she reminded him. Pleased. At the thrift store, I styled it after the favorite popular show, the Donna Reed show. Any comments or questions before I continue?
I think he's meeting his feminine self, his feminine higher self, and realizing that she is a figment of his imagination at one point, but he's finding out that he's meeting his feminine side as well as his masculine side that he's manifested.
I hadn't thought about that.
But it's coming out in the book as a character,
Mm-hmm.
and he's giving life to it, although it already has life within him, but he's discovering it.
Right.
And ironically, when you mentioned about the pearl necklace, I saw Donna Reed in the kitchen with her little apron and her little sweater and her necklace that hits just the neckline of her sweater. That's what I was seeing. And then when you mentioned Donna Reed's show, it was like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm still just trying to figure out, is he still hypnotized, or was he ever hypnotized?
Mendel?
Yes.
No, he's at home now, and they're home from the science fiction convention, and right now she is a reality to him. But as Sakina said, I think right now she is a reality to him, but she is really a figment of his imagination. That's how.
Yeah, that part I do get, but I'm still wondering, is even though he walked away from the doctor's office and said I can't be hypnotized, I'm wondering, is he still under, and what is going on is is like you said, the whole thing that he is seeing is a figment of that imagination. So I'm just wondering if he's still under hypnosis, and what we're reading right now and what is playing out just in his head right now.
So you're suggesting that he's probably self-hypnotized? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and yeah, in
Oh,
a sense, yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Makes perfect sense. And now that I think about it, strong possibility.
Lot of
I mean,
possibilities.
yeah, because I'm just going back to that first part where he was in the doctor's office, and
Mhm.
and he really wasn't supposed to see the patient, the female patient, and
The
she
one that
had
had gone through electric shock.
yeah, and she had black hair,
Mhm.
and but he kind of felt a connection to her. So and the opposite with Arya, she has, you know, I guess a blonde
Yeah,
or
she's blonde hair, blue eyed.
you know, so so I'm looking at it from a point like, is he still under that hypnosis in some shape, form, or fashion, and projecting from his mind? So yes, he's still creating it. He's still, you know, she is still a part of his creation that he has manifested. But is he, you know, hypnotized?
Um, I don't know. Best I can say. Anybody else have any ideas on that?
Well, I'm just really surprised that after all of this conversation that they have had, that he hasn't talked to her about Sandra. That he keeps leaving that aspect out to
About,
say that
did
to
you say
say that
about family?
Sandra.
Oh,
Well,
oh, okay.
I think Arya is an escape for him. You know, writing this book and creating the character and building the character is actually, I think, an escape for him to not have to deal with Sandra and all of her antics. It's like, you know, when she's there, but when she's not there, I don't have to think about her. Let me change my plan. Let me think about something else. Let me build on something that feels more real to me than Sandra.
But
And Sandra may be real, but it may be something he doesn't want to deal with.
and
Because she
he and in the last passage that I read, there was some thoughts that crossed his mind about things that he would just as soon not deal with.
yeah,
He
things
didn't
that
say he didn't say
really
exactly what they were, but he did mention the fact that there were things that he just as soon not have to deal with. And she's probably one of them, probably at the top of his list.
probably the top 10.
uh, okay, any other comments? Ready to move on?
Yep.
Mendel smiled, somewhat pained, then looked down at his hands, rubbing one palm then the other. The Donna Reed show hadn't been popular for decades. It was reruns she had seen. He reflected on the fairness of keeping her sequestered as he had been doing. Wasn't it her prerogative to recall enough about the past to know what was current or changed fashion? She was somewhat touching, sitting there so eagerly, as if doing her best to portray what she thought a woman should be, like an alien adopting to. No, Mendel caught the thought and corrected himself. Take an amnesiac. He wanted to stop fooling himself. Some people laughed when Arya spoke to them. It's out of some sort of relief, Mendel thought, more than ridicule. He contemplated how people reacted to her. She was kind and courteous, aware of others. When she spoke, she was considerate of the person in front of her, as if there were no other life like that one in the world. She funneled undivided attention on strangers, spotlighting them with her gaze. Sincere care flowed from her heart with such gratuitous, warm candor that it naturally sunnied others. She left trails of smiling faces. It's called regression, Arya repeated to Mendel eagerly. I can go back and find out what happened, who I am. The prospect frightened him. He looked up at her and stopped fiddling with his hand. It didn't matter to him anymore who she was. It was fine with him that she was a blonde, blue-eyed girl with a ready smile, who loved all his favorite poets, music, flowers, animals, paintings, dancing, and the ocean. She was herself. What did details matter? Mendel nodded now to let her know he had heard her, then looked out the window at the cascade of red. He thought, life is seen in pieces. The mind, body, chemicals, others' evaluations. Time itself, all can fluctuate the total picture or allow one to see only bits and pieces and corners, or only what one wants to see. What is the whole story? The mystery beckoned him. While he could contend he knew her on some level, if only recognition of an essence, missing facts still teased him. Arya was still looking at him earnestly. The sight of her drew him. He again wanted to tell her that his love for her owned his entire being in a way that had no rational explanation. He didn't know how to warn her about Sandra. He started to say, life isn't all wonderful. He remembered when his mother told him that, very sadly, in exactly those words. One day in the kitchen, when he was 9, he had jauntily come in from playing in a nearby stream. She was worried about him being there, near the woods alone. Coming from a world of moss, tadpoles, dragonflies, skipping stones, and sunny reflection pools, he felt by contrast only his mother's distant sadness etched in his memory. His face bore the tiredness of guardianship and love, as she said it. He had looked up at her in wonder and had not known at all what she meant. He hadn't yet learned about war, about hate, about perversion, about greed, about insanity, about death. Life isn't all wonderful. He decided not to say it. Nobody could tell another about it. One finds out soon enough. Experience is a personally reserved seat for each person born onto the earth. And that's the end of chapter 20. Any comments?
Deep.
Huh?
I just said deep.
Oh,
The
yeah,
last part where he's recollecting what his mother told him and how
Yeah.
true.
right. And then deciding not to tell her.
Now in essence, I think she knows.
Yeah,
I think, and she's helping him to open up and explore it by acting naive.
right. I actually knew a woman who was like that. She passed away recently, but she gave the impression that she was a real airhead, But when you got to know her, she was a very, for lack of a better word, very deep and insightful individual and very caring individual. And everybody remembered her jovial and happy personality, best way I can put it. Any other comments? If not, we'll move on to chapter 21. This is where it gets interesting. The irritation that had begun to percolate in Mendel amplified the noise of Dr. Kofkiff's pencil as it scratched across the paper. The soundproof office blocked out all outside noise, and the lead scribbling across the page, accented by an occasional important sounding flourish, dominated the room, which had fallen silent. Mendel became aware of the sound of his own breathing. The thought of Sandra waiting in reception provoked the beginning of a spasm in his left shoulder. She was gloating by now, he imagined, now that everyone was in the same boat getting professional help. And he has that professional help in quotes. He did not trust a profession that, while claiming the title of doctor, deplored the impossibility of any cure and classified dreams as dangerous, the human being an animal. Sandra Wilford was always nicer to Mendel when he was broken, or in some misery. It was a statistic. He reviewed the evidence. When he was down, Sandra was chipper. Personally, Mendel preferred an angry man to a sobbing one, but the electroshock boy doesn't see it that way, and neither does Sandra. For them, a crying, broken man is safer, an apathetic man safer yet. Dead is too obvious, but the closer to it, the better in their book. So he seethed in the corner of the office, swelling up and down on the waves of personal rage and deep concern for Aria's welfare. He watched Dr. Kofkiff and wondered how another person could possibly sit and tell others what was going on with them. Being evaluated in that manner was difficult than really being listened to. So far, Aria had been regressed, and Dr. Kifkoff was astonished and bewildered by the fact that she, as he put it, appeared to have no subconscious, nothing. Now she was up and sitting eagerly in her chair again. Dr. Kofkiff stopped scribbling. The therapist seemed to hang in suspended motion for a moment. Just as Mendel wondered what he was going to do next, the man twisted the pencil in his fingers, tapped the pad of paper with the eraser, and, not moving his head, rolled his eyes up to peer over the top of his glasses. A brief laugh effervesced out of Aria. When Dr. Kofkiff's eyebrows curved up in question, she explained, "You think they make you look intelligent, too. Your glasses. I don't understand it. Why should failing eyesight, a deficiency of the organism, indicate intelligence? Perhaps because using glasses signifies a person has used their eyes to read, and is therefore intelligent." Aria shook her head, carrying on with herself. "That doesn't really follow logically. but maybe what some people conclude. Kivkoff was fascinated by her disclosure and noted how she rambled on, posing and answering her own questions. Tell me, he coaxed her, do you often talk to yourself? How do you mean? He pointed out with careful enunciation, just now, for example. Oh, yes, Arya interrupted him, having determined what he was going to say before he finished explaining. I do that when I want to know something, she told him. I pose a question about something I have never thought of, and then I know the answer. If I don't ask or wonder, I won't know. I see. The therapist pursed his lips and glanced over his data sheet. In perplexity, he returned to the most curious fact of all. The girl's IQ measured 220, well beyond 140, where genius range began. Yet her entire demeanor, the insouciance, the open, unguarded gaze, the light temperament, none of it to him was indicative of intelligence. Kofkiv looked for stolid, supercilious seriousness as the sign of intelligence. Though Einstein, Mozart, and other prodigies had childlike temperaments, enamored of wonder, the therapist school of experience dealt with posturing superiority. It didn't occur to him that perhaps jocosity and candid simplicity were traits, direct reflections of a facility that came from mastery, and pompous cognition was merely the low-level effort to pass for virtuosity. I have no subconscious, Harriott pondered. Could it be I have a blocked conscience? I said, it appears you don't, Dr. Kofka said. Maybe I have an abconscious? Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? The therapist asked, ignoring the comment. No, I appreciate your concern. Good. He smiled tersely, then his face went serious. Do you often feel this phenomena, what you describe, as though you are not your body? Yes, all the time, Arya told him. Kofkiv transferred a scrutinizing look back and forth to Mendel, who was sitting behind Arya by some bookshelves, then back to her. At those times, he resumed, do you feel disassociated from anything else? What do you mean? Detached, disassociated. Oh no, Mendel thought, not this routine. Ah, yes, all the time, Arya replied eagerly. When I was getting the medical examination, I could see the smallest letters at the bottom of the chart. The physician was amazed and kept pulling it further and further away. But you see, I was not looking at the chart with my eyes. Were you experiencing a sense of far awayness? No. Did things seem vague to you? Unreal? No. Dr. Kofkiv glanced at his notes. You were not seeing with your eyes? Right. Even though I was looking through them to perceive some things, I was also looking without them. I see. Oh, good. It happened after I fell off the roof. That was when I noticed it. Of course. And you remember nothing before the day you fell off the roof, correct? Arya nodded yes, pushing a strand of wavy ringlets behind her ear. I see. Oh, good. Dr. Kivkoff sat up a little straighter. He took a moment to think, trying to ignore her outburst. You found yourself in the bathroom. You were wet, wearing a trash bag. Is that right? Wearing a trash bag? He paused as though that were particularly significant until Arya confirmed it was a nod. Confirmed it with a nod. You don't remember how you got there? Correct. It's just blank. Had you been in the shower? I don't know. The absence of memory frustrated and amazed her anew. I just don't know. Kofkin lowered and warmed his voice. How do you feel about Mendel? She didn't, excuse me, I need to get some water. Can you pause it, Penny? I have no subconscious, Arya pondered. Could it be I have a blocked subconscious? I said it appears you don't, Dr. Kofkin said. Maybe I have an abconscious? Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? The therapist asked, ignoring the comment. No, I appreciate your concern. Good, he smiled tersely. Then his face went serious. Do you often feed this phenomenon? What you described as though you are not your body. Yes, all the time, Arya told him. Kofkin transferred a scrutinizing look back and forth to Mendel, who was sitting behind Arya by some bookshelves, then back to her. At those times, he resumed, do you feel disassociated from anything else? What do you mean? Detached, disassociated. Oh no, Mendel thought, not this routine. Yes, all the time, Arya replied eagerly. When I was getting the medical examination, I could see the smallest letters at the bottom of the chart. The physician was amazed and kept pulling it further and further away. But you see, I was not looking at the chart with my eyes. Were you experiencing a sense of far awayness? No. Did things seem vague to you, unreal? No. Dr. Kofkin glanced at his notes. You just were not seeing with your eyes, right? Even though I was looking through them to perceive something, I was also looking without them. I see. Oh, good. It happened after I fell off the roof. That was when I noticed it. Of course, of course. And you remember nothing before the day you fell off the roof, correct? Arya nodded yes, pushing a strand of wavy ringlets behind her ear. I see. All good. Dr. Kofkin sat up a little straighter. He took a moment to think, trying to ignore her outburst. You found yourself in the bathroom. You were wet, wearing a trash bag. Is that right? Wearing a trash bag. He paused as though that were particularly significant until Arya confirmed it with a nod. And you don't remember how you got there. Correct. It's just blank. Had you been in the shower? I don't know. The absence of memory frustrated and amazed her anew. I just don't know. Kofkin lowered and warmed his voice. How do you feel about Mendel? She didn't hesitate. I like him. I see. Oh, good. Kofkin again chose to ignore the literalness with which Arya took his manner of speaking. Keeping on the earlier track, he pursued. You like him? Would you describe that for me, please? Buoyant with hope that the doctor was understanding something she didn't. Arya swerved a little in her chair to see Mendel better. She smiled. Then she faced Dr. Kofkiff again and told him, he oxidizes me. I beg your pardon. That's okay. You didn't do anything wrong, Arya assured him kindly. The therapist noted the fluctuations in her personality. She seemed outstandingly lucid at times and other times confused. As Kofkiff leaned back in his chair, he scribbled his observation. Lapses of being able to discern figurative speech. Seems only able to take things literally. Without looking up from his notes, he asked Arya, would you explain what you mean by that? Any comments before we get into this dialogue?
The doctor is in one dimension and she's in another, and she's got him confounded.
Yeah, she running circles around this man.
Right, Andre?
She's running circles around him. He's trying to diagnose her and nothing is wrong. He's looking for a diagnosis. He just can't find one.
Right. He's and you
Yeah.
can picture that because a lot of times when we watch movies and they're showing a person who's in therapy, that society and the doctor thinks something's wrong, the person themselves doesn't feel anything is wrong, and they feel they're as normal as can be in their mind, and everybody else is out of their mind.
Right.
And sometimes they probably are
It's
right.
all objective.
Right.
Well, I kind of think that Andre is right, because why is Mendel in her therapy session?
I was wondering about that myself.
I was gonna ask that question too. It's I mean, we all know therapy is supposed to be, confidential,
And
they're not
again, did we?
and they're
and
not
then
in a
again-
therapy session together. So why is he there?
And then again, is he the one that's actually in therapy, but it's his other personality, that feminine side of him that the doctor is analyzing?
Mm-hmm.
Because Sandra's in the waiting room waiting for him.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we still dealing with her. She waiting. She waiting to bite. She's itching to bite. But that's the curious part about it that I'm trying to figure out too, because Sandra can see her as well. So it's not just a figment of his imagination.
I don't know if she actually sees her, or if she's listening to Andre, listening to Mandel describe her and talk about her as if she was a real earthly human being.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if Sandra really sees her, or if she's just playing into what Mandel is describing.
Mendel's fantasy.
And yet at the same time, I do think that Ariel is his feminine self coming out, and he's just discovering her as he's writing this book, and putting her in as a character that he's falling for. He's he may have started out as this needing a feminine character in his story, but all of a sudden he's finding that he's developing qualities and manifesting those qualities in her. So it's interesting.
It is, and I'm with Penelope. I would like to see this developed into a movie, to see exactly how they handle all these different characters. I would really like to see it as a movie.
Who knows?
Maybe I'll write a letter to some Hollywood producer and say, why have you considered this book?
And
Why
and
not?
it could be as Andre has said, it's just this one session, and Mandela has been hypnotized and doesn't realize he's been hypnotized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay. Any other comments before we
Just listening.
continue on?
Yes.
Okay. Oxidizes me. You know, oxidize, to increase the valence of an element in a positive direction. You derive a sense of well-being from him. Yes. Does he remind you of anyone? Kofkev asked, drawing out the word remind as though it were of great significance. Family, perhaps? He fished. Father, boss, brother? I think so. I don't know. She thought about it and concluded. He seems familiar, friendly. Then looked at Kofkev with dismay. But I don't even know if I have a father. Mendel's speculations about the woman instantly revived. He wondered, feeling the goosebumps begin, what if she did remember something about herself so incredible she might be classified as insane? Kofkev was chiding her patronizingly. Now, let's look at this. Do you feel abandoned at all? Abandoned? Maybe she was abandoned as a child. Had a childhood too terrible to remember? Maybe she's crazy. Has done things she wants to forget. Mendel cautioned himself. I have to be willing to accept anything about her, whatever it is. Not abandoned, no. I just don't know about my past. So it feels as if I don't have one. Of course, Kofkev said, checking himself from saying, I see, wondering if she referred to a past or a father. Arya looked over at Mandel for reassurance. He let go a small smile. Let's try this before we finish for today, Kofkev instructed Arya. I'll say something to you, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind when I snap my fingers. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be interesting. She determined her expression. He determined by her expression that Arya understood what he meant, then said, ready? She nodded. Chair. The doctor then snapped his fingers. Chair, Arya responded. Woman, he said, and snapped his fingers. Woman. Man. Sharp finger snap. Man, Arya replied. Banana. Snap. Banana. Dr. Kofkev was perturbed. Now, Arya, tell me what is going on. The condescension in his voice caused her to introvert a little. Am I doing something wrong? She asked. What are you doing? I'm doing what you asked me to do, she told him. But you're only repeating what I said, Kofkev said. No, I'm not. I'm telling you what I think of. Now, let's face this. Everything I have said, you have repeated. Is that not so? No, I haven't, Dr. Kofkev. He was surprised at her adamancy. How would you describe it? He asked her. A brief but somewhat heavy exhale betrayed his exasperation. I've been telling you what comes to mind when you say what you say, Arya explained. Kofkev was silent. He felt a little ruffled as though being proven wrong. He took a moment to regain his composure. comforting himself against the frustration of dealing with mental disorder. All right, then, the doctor resumed smoothly. Shall we continue then? Close your eyes this time. Arya complied. The first thing that comes to mind, he reminded her, then proceeded from where he had left off. Banana. He snapped his fingers. Banana, Arya replied. Apple, he called out and snapped. Apple, Arya said. Pond, snap, pond, then faster. River, snap, river, smoke, snap, snake. Arya replied faster. House, snap, house. Dr. Kofkiv was increasing his tempo. Ocean, snap, ocean, cat, snap, cat, car, cat, sex, snap, sex. Now he stopped once more. Arya, he asked. There was silence. Her eyes were still closed. Finally, you didn't snap your fingers, she told him.
Mhm.
You may open your eyes now, Dr. Kofkiv informed her. When she did, he checked. Don't you think of anything when I say these things? Bewildered by his question, Arya answered, yes. When you said house, I thought of a house. Don't these things signify anything to you? Don't they mean anything? Arya was absolutely perplexed. Of course they mean something. They mean what they are. Don't they bring anything to mind? You mean anything other than what they are? She asked curiously. Some people, when I say snake, think of bite. Or when I say pencil, some people think of paper or school or airplane. After citing examples, Kofkiv sat back in his leather chair expectantly. He inwardly chided himself that he couldn't be feeling disconcerted with the patient. Arya simply stared at him. Does anything like that come to mind at all? He prompted her. No, Arya marveled. Why would anyone think of an airplane when you said pencil? Mendel concealed his amusement. He had no trouble understanding her. The fact that she did not think of objects as symbols, but saw them as what they were, was an indication of sanity to him. What do you think of when I said knife? Dr. Kofkiv pitched a last-minute curveball, then snapped his fingers. Knife, Arya answered. Pain, snap, pain. Remember, snap, remember. All right, the therapist surrendered as though it had been war. Mendel interceded, concealing his merriment under a studious countenance. Excuse me, doctor. He scratched the side of his head a little and earnestly asked, what do most people think of when you say banana? It varies, Kofkiv said, busy with his notes. She is not cooperating. She's working against me. Have I done something wrong? Arya asked. Her question earned a sharp glance from Dr. Kofkiv, which he mollified into a smile. Do you feel as though you have? She thought about it. Yes, sir,
Harriott, you put mute. You're on mute. Harriott, you muted yourself. Yeah.
Okay. I remember. Do you feel this way often, as though you have upset someone? No. Do you often feel as though people are angry with you? You're not upset, Arya asked him. Deciding his own emotions were not pertinent, Kofkiv steered Arya further. Perhaps you feel others are working against you or that people don't like you. You weren't just upset, a little upset with me, Arya asked again. Dr. Kofkiv decided it best not to complicate the session by entering his personal non-clinical opinion. Besides, he concluded, in a twinge of irritation I felt in dealing with her was only transitory and therefore irrelevant. To hell with her. I'm not upset with you, dear, he told her. Arya's heart began to race. Well, Kafka concluded somberly, his shoulders moving up and down as he heaved a conclusive sigh. This is our first visit. We both agree you need help. You are suffering from an identity crisis. Obviously, there is something in your past which you do not want to remember. Thus, the amnesia. You say there was no evidence from the medical exam of physical injury, nor blows to the head. Therefore, is it possibly safe to assume it is a severe emotional trauma of some? Now Arya's chest heaved as her breathing quickened. You're lying to me, she accused suddenly. Mendel leaned forward, alarmed. Kafka's interest perked. Gone was the soft, mellifluous voice. Arya had started to perspire. Some words were bordering on strident. Don't you know how harmful it is to disorient a person's reality that way? Are you directly messing with my sanity? She was speaking louder than Mendel had ever heard her. To tell a person something is not so when in fact it is? What do you think that does? She demanded. Then accused, you are sitting there pretending to have my best interest in mind when you just lied to me. You intentionally undermined my sense of observation and judgment. A split pause, then, you were upset with me moments ago. Admit it. You wanted me to go to hell. Mendel noticed sweat breaking out on her forehead. All right, yes, all right. Kivkov tried to soothe her. After a tense moment, Arya said, thank you, sat back a little. A person's observation and sense of reality is really very important to you. No, she explained, looking nervous and unsure. What I feel is real. What I see is real. You can't say it isn't real when it is real. It is real. It is. Of course it is, Dr. Kivkov told her. Her sudden shift in comportment confirmed his speculations. His silent conclusion, schizophrenic with paranoid tendencies. Arya looked at him, grabbed the sides of her chair, and inched forward again. That's not it, she said. You think I'm schizoid, but I'm not. Silence vacuumed the room again. Miss Flight, I was only giving them certain reasons. Excuse me a second.
But just to let, since you're taking a break, just to remind you that we're at 8:26.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just a few more pages. Mhm. Let me see. Yeah, just 1, 2, 3 more pages. Okay. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's my page. Miss Flight, I was only giving you certain reasons, certain theories. If you will, about the amnesia, I said nothing about. Those aren't reasons. You call those reasons? She was gripping the armrest and now pushed herself up to her feet. Hey, she challenged defiantly. Something is going on here, and I want to know what it is. And you haven't given me anything to go on. Dr. Kofkiff was unflinching as he calmly observed and let her continue. The major crazies are always quiet, unflinching ones, Mendel thought. He knew that one buzz he knew that one buzz away were means of forceful restraint, from jackets to drugs, an arm's length away. All the doctor had to do was reach over and press a button. I'm not schizophrenic, Harriott insisted petulantly, her eyes wide. Perspiration trickled down her neck into dark spots on her dress, and her arms were sudorous too. As Mendel noticed her rage and abnormal sweat, it called up the memory of the electroshock patient he had seen in his last visit to the facility. Sandra's warnings about the girl clamored next. A crazed fan out for a free ride. Then his own speculation, space goddess. His thoughts began to jumble in his thinking process like clothes in a dryer, and he only saw cuffs, collars, and corners roll past. I said nothing of schizophrenia, dear. Dr. Kofkiff looked assured. Harriott assumed she had made a paranoid guess. But you were thinking it. I know what it means. Hey, what do you think I am? This piece of meat I'm walking around in? Flesh and blood and guts? Well, I think we're getting somewhere, past the cheery personality you offer at first. His statement filled Ari with indignation. It exploded into her face. What? She cried. You upset me like this and tell me we're making progress? Harriott. Mendel stepped over to her and grasped her upper arm firmly. She turned on him, her eyes flashing like he had never seen. They were wild with incomprehension and rage. He could feel her trembling. It isn't fair, she insisted. That's how to drive a person crazy. Keep telling them what they see and feel isn't real. It's only in their head. She pointed at Kofkiff and accused. He was thinking things about me and denied it. There's a reason I'm upset, and it's not because I'm crazy. I know what I see. I understand, Mendel told her. Her upset decreased a fraction. There's a reason for what I feel. A whimper undulated her tone. Sure there is. There is a reason, Mendel assured her. As her breathing quieted some, Ariel began to feel amazed about her reaction. Just because I changed emotions does not mean I became another personality, she defended herself. Of course, Kofkiff said, jotting down some notes and recommendations. Mendel knew he had to do something to take control of the situation. To conceal his trepidation, he stretched as if bored, and he was about to initiate their exit, but didn't manage soon enough. Electroshock, Arya whispered incredulously, then wheeled around and glared at the doctor. As Dr. Kofkiff rose from his chair, he attributed her correct guess about what he had just written in her file as another paranoid jab in the dark. They can be quite clever. Characteristic of the personality type? He surmised she was covering her bases, trying to outguess people, hoping to buy a step ahead of their moves against her. Grab a drink.
Do you need me to pause?
No, I'm good. Now I lost my place. Oh, Aria looked at him, grabbed the sides of, no, I read that. Oh, okay. It isn't fair, she insisted. That's how to drive a person crazy. Just because I changed emotions does not mean I became another personality, she defended herself. Of course, Kofkif said, jotting down some notes and recommendations. Mendel knew he had to do something to take control of the situation. To conceal his trepidation, he scratched as if bored, and he was about to initiate their exit, but couldn't manage soon enough. Electroshock? Aria whispered incredulously, then wheeled around and glared at the doctor. As Dr. Kofkif rose from his chair, he attributed her correct guess about what he had just written in her file as another paranoid jab in the dark. They can be quite clever. Characteristic of the personality type, he surmised she was covering her bases, trying to outguess people, hoping to stay a step ahead of their moves against her. I'm sure you'll be fine, Dr. Kipkoff said, trying to dismiss the tension with a little forced laugh. Mendel joined in. Sure. He was at Aria's side and rapidly stepped forward and extended a hand, which the doctor accepted and shook. Dr. Kofkif, thank you very much. Interesting custom. Aria had said, watching them, shaking hands originates from the days when it was done to show the parties bore no weapon. Today, the weapons are more invisible. She was looking at their hand, but not focusing. She sounded drained. A few more visits and you'll find them getting more pleasant. You'll even look forward to coming here, Dr. Kofkill placated her. If you find yourself too upset, there is something I can prescribe, a medication that will help you. Thank you for your help. Mendel intercepted, thinking, drug, just what she needs to help her get oriented. He quickly turned to face Aria, sure that his back was completely to Dr. Kofkin. He implored her with his eyes to say no more. He tried to gesture and pour his understanding to her, then arching his eyebrows dramatically for her to get the hint. He said, you've done very well for your first visit. Aria decided to trust in him and fell silent in his care. So as not to appear in a panic to leave, Mendel asked the doctor, do you have a Kleenex? Then, noticing a box on the corner of the desk, he said, there, thanks. He could feel his heart beat as he wiped sweat off Aria's neck and face. He thought of nothing but getting her out of there without seeming too abrupt, and finally maneuvered it. Any comments? You just have another couple of paragraphs. And I kind of paused there.
Well, let's just finish up the paragraphs.
Okay. In a waiting area, Sandra flipped through a magazine, barely seeing the pages, mostly looking at her own lamentations. She was pleased the woman with Mendel was even less pretty than she remembered. Exotic, maybe, but a model she is not. She was not tall, which to Sandra was everything. It was difficult to pinpoint her age because she had a childlike appearance about her, yet She had to be at least 35, Sandra guessed. Perhaps it was the oval face, the chin, which was not strong, and the big eyes. Her hair appeared more platinum than when she first saw her, yet she denied having it done. She lied, the color's not normal. The waves have to be a perm. She's wearing chiffon. Who wears chiffon in the afternoon? When Sandra noticed Mendel and Aria approaching down the hall, she did a mental check of her posture and composure, legs crossed and extended, back straight, ensuring that her head was in the position she had planned to affect Mendel, with the sunlight sparkling through the plate glass window onto her hair. Sandra stopped thumbing through the magazine and pretended to be engrossed reading. Mendel is looking less haunted these days, she thought. His arm around Aria put a pang through her, but she tempered her anger and sat there as attractively as she could, silently racing through options of what to say. How did it go? Oh, there you are. Isn't he a wonderful man? Did he help you? What is your problem? Who the hell are you? She gauged her timing, looked up, feigned surprise, and was about to open her mouth to speak when Mendel and Aria walked right past her. Mendel, Aria, she called after them as she discarded the magazine. He could hear Sandra's heels clattering behind them across the reception area and down the steps, following them across the parking lot. Sandra maneuvered herself in front of Aria and Mendel. What happened? Go home. Sandra aimed a distraught expression at Aria, targeting her as the most accessible. What happened? What's the matter? Aria resisted Mendel's yanking her forward. She's only trying to help us, she protested. That is exactly what she's not doing, Mendel said, unlocking the silver car door. He held it open for Aria to get in, then shut it and brusquely crossed to the driver's side. He could feel Sandra's glare on him, trying first to singe, then incinerate him, and he was relieved to be in the car with the door shut. The car windows were up, but Sandra could hear Aria's eruption into sobs. The voice was muffled, but she could make out, there's a reason for what I feel. What I feel is real. An almost wailing lament turned into sobs. There is a reason. There is. I know that, Mendel assured her, even though we don't know what it is. Sandra bent down to look through the window and saw Mendel lean toward Aria and caress her hair. He was being reassuring, telling her, the right reason won't upset you. Don't worry, we'll find out what it is. Then their voices were overtaken by the volume of engine as he turned the key in the ignition. As Sandra watched them back out of the parking spot and drive away, her obsession became malignant. She was determined with a vengeance. Damn right, we're going to find out what it is. Any comments?
Well, I think all of these people are personalities. Because it's just amazing that Sandra is there at the psychiatrist's office, that Mendel is in the room, and he's wiping sweat off of Aria's neck.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that all of these people are Mendel's other personalities.
Alter egos.
Yeah.
Right.
And that but also I kind of think that, and I'm just gonna put this in with my round table too, is that this is the third day that we have been talking about the mind. You know, just
Mhm.
how all of our classes so interconnect that here is another session about the mind, about consciousness, about different levels of consciousness, about psychiatry. So I think that this is how amazing it is that
Yeah.
all of our sessions interconnect in some way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so for me, you know, what I take away from this and how I feel that I can use this how I can use it in my life is just really just to pay attention to what my thoughts are. What am
Mhm.
I thinking? What is my mind experiencing at this moment in wherever I am in this space and time?
Yeah. That's true. When we become more mindful and more aware of observing our thoughts, we're better able to accept and understand where other people are coming from in their thoughts.
Mhm.
And we become um, more loving beings and not judgmental, and critical, or intolerant. We begin to realize where they're coming from, and that what they say to us may not necessarily be directed towards us. It's just a part of them that's coming out that needs to be released and let go. And we act as a sounding board to help them to let go of it by becoming more mindful.
Thank you. Anybody in next? We can just conclude our thoughts about these last couple of chapters along with our roundtable at the same time.
Well, again, with what we've been reading, I'll be honest. I'm really hoping this is not a schizo book. I hate schizo movies. I hate it. I can't stand it. It gets on my nerves. I mean, from even all the way back to the Johnny Depp Secret Window movie, I can see 5 minutes of it, and I'm like, schizo movie, don't like it. Just don't. I just really don't care for. Um, it's just a part of me, and what I can take from it is I'm I'm I am cheering for them. First of all, the two main characters, which is Arya and Wendell, I'm cheering for them in that standpoint that what they are witnessing and what they are experiencing is something that they are going through. Um, again, I don't do psychiatrists and all that. I've dealt with that before. I love the way that Arya, when they asked her the questions of, okay, I'm going to ask you something, and you recite pencil, pencil, house. And if you've ever seen a psychiatrist or been in a doctor's office, or seeing ink blots or anything like that, it can be very condescending. It can be very intimidating as well. So, on one way of looking at it is I'm rooting for them to be individual characters that are finding one another throughout space, time, and and cosmos. At that same point, what I'm taking from this, and what I would like to continue to take from this, is to understand that love is not just a sexual thing. It's something that can be that transitions just a physical attribute of it, of intimacy. Intimacy may have a part to play in love. And it's not just sex. It's a handshake. That handshake that they had, that Wendell and the doctor had, it was not a friendly handshake. It was an adversary handshake. It was a firm grip. It was,
Mhm.
okay, you gonna back off. And Arya could see that. So that's the things that I'm taking from it, is to more or less look at the way that we love, and it's okay to love even if you don't know why you are.
Mhm.
Thank you. How about you, Forrest?
Well, for me, I can kind of relate to some of the things in the I have. When I went to the doctor, I thought I knew everything, but then I had to get the help that I needed. So now I take the medicine to help me with my bipolar. So sometimes
You blacked out. You blanked out. We can't hear you.
mentally balance. That's my roundtable.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Harriott?
Well, for me, I'm still trying to sort the characters out. Um, when I think I'm getting them, they kind of take another twist or turn. And right now, I'm not sure about Mendel. I'm not sure um, if he's not having a problem and it's coming through in this session with Dr. Kifkoff. But like Andre, I'm rooting for and happily and happily ever after, especially for Mendel and Aria. And I just want to see, and it's not nice to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm looking for Sandra to get her just desserts, or to get her karma, or whatever you want to call it, her rewards, if you want to call them that. I am enjoying it, and again, I really would like to see this book as a movie, to see how they handle, the different aspects of it.
Yeah, that would be that would be. I think that would be a fun movie. I
Yeah.
really do. Yeah. And it, and I like I said, I always have loved convoluted stories. So, that always keep me guessing. There's always a twist and turn. There's always something else that's happening. So I think that
Mhm.
this is really a fascinating story,
It
because we can
is.
see the metaphysical aspect, we can see the psychological aspect, we can
Mhm.
see the quantum physics side, we can see things that have to do with relationships. So there's so much material in this novel that most stories don't necessarily have.
Mhm.
So I think I really think this is a great story. So thank you, Harriet, for bringing this book to our attention. We don't have anything for tomorrow, and Saturday, Andre is going to present a session of Libra. So
What
we'll be
time?
Saturday 2 to 4.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so we'll be experiencing Libra
And
as
I am Libra,
yeah. Me
October
too.
17th. I'll be the big 6-0.
Okay, happy birthday.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
I'll be 66. 66. So on my birthday coming up on next Thursday, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
Okay.
beautiful.
Uh-huh. So and then Sunday, excuse me, we'll be finishing up on with the Sephira of Netzach with in Kabbalah.
Mhm.
And so we'll be finishing up with that on Sunday. That's also from 2 to 4. And then the following weekend is our session at Sandra's house, where we're going to get together. We haven't had an opportunity to get together now, in a couple of months now. So I'm looking forward to us having a great time to come together. I can give you all big hugs, and I can see you smiling faces right there with us. And so it'll be great. And that's going to be at Sandra's house. It's going to be we're going to start at 2, like our regular time. And we'll watch the movie, have a short discussion. We'll eat good food and have some camaraderie. So that will be a great session. And that's going to be September the 30th. And I will text you all Sandra's address within the next couple of days or so. And
Okay.
that's it. If anybody has any other comments or questions or anything else?
Mhm.
Okay, would anyone like to close us out in prayer?
Oh, I can. No one
Okay.
else wants to. Beloved Lord, Almighty God, the source of all that was, is, and will forever be. We thank you that you have chosen to flow into the hearts and minds of each one of us, that you have chosen to allow us to manifest your light and your love in all of its various forms. Bless each and every one of us as we go about our daily tasks, and help us to not only speak of manifesting, of understanding, of love, and of light, but help us to continue to be the best we can possibly be, and demonstrate your attributes in all that we think, say, and do. We let it be so, and so it is.
And
Bless
so it
you.
is. Thank you
it
very
is.
much. Good night.
Night,
Yeah,
everyone.
great
Everyone.
session, everybody. See you on
Yes, everyone.
Saturday.
Okay.
Love
Bye.
you.
Love
Peace.
you. Bye-bye.